Hi, this is Kyle again, and I'm here for the third video on the subject of object-oriented programming in VB, or creating and using classes in VB. And this time we're going to do a perhaps more realistic example of abstraction, something a bit more distant from dogs and hopefully something more useful. So here's a large block of text, and what this is, if you look at it carefully, it's kind of a description of a problem that can be solved with a fairly simple program. And if you're reading through it, you might find that this looks kind of like a lab description. This is the kind of thing you might get in industry or for describing a placement. And you can see these people are saying they need to calculate payroll for an employee. They have certain things that are stipulated here, like overtime is going to be calculated. They say that they have a certain range for the hourly wage and a certain range for the hours worked. So some validation is going to come into play here. Way back in week one, I told you that a really good thing to do when it came to lab requirements, for example, was actually look at the lab requirements, highlight the things you needed to do, and check them off as you completed them, or highlight them in a different color. And I still think that's a fantastic idea. So if we were to look at this, and maybe you want to take a moment and think about what you would highlight here yourself, and pause the video right now, and then when you unpause it, you'll see hopefully something kind of like this. So I've highlighted what I think are the most important things I can easily pull out of here. We do need to here in this, to solve this problem, calculate an employee payroll, and we're going to maintain summary payroll data for employees. When I say summary payroll data, that's referring to things like totals, total pay, total number of employees, and so we talked earlier about shared variables for a class, and so we'll make use of that. The pay will be calculated based on the number of hours the work. The hourly pay is going to exist for each employee. Overtime is paid for hours over 40. There's a total number of employees, total payroll, and total overtime hours that will exist as summary values. I tried to pull things out of here to think about how I'm going to design a class, and this class will be an employee payroll class. We'll design a class to handle this type of interaction. And I came up with something sort of like this. Although this example was given to me, I shouldn't take too much credit. But still, the payroll class, these are the types of things that I pulled out of that description, I'll say. There are a set of properties, and these properties are all the things that need to be a part of this class. These first few are properties that each instance of this class, or each object, each worker's payroll, will need to have recorded separately. So each worker will have their own hours, their own pay rate, and their own pay. And then there are a few down here that are the shared ones, the number of employees, the total payroll, and the total overtime hours. And that needs to be tracked, but it's for all workers. So these top ones are instance variables, and these bottom ones are shared variables. But they're all properties of the class. Under methods, really the only thing that this class needs to be able to do, based on that description, is calculate the pay. That's a method that it's going to be able to run to figure out the pay. That and, of course, like every class, you need to be able to create it, and we'll need to give it some kind of behavior for when the payroll is created. And so that'll be done with a constructor. So we need the option to create it or make a new payroll instance. Under events, we can think about validation, and so there are at least two types of validation we need to do on ranges here. Events are signals that we send to other parts of the program, and this could be the validations are out of range, and so we need to send an event up to the presentation tier to react to this. This is possible. It's also possible to put validation in the business logic itself, perhaps in the set or mutator method for a class. So that's a possibility. It could be an event. It could also be a method. We're going a bit light on events in this particular course, so I might put it under events, but there's other ways it could be considered right. It's not that validation has to be an event. Anyway, at this point, we've more or less designed the properties and methods for our class, which is a very useful planning step. And I think this is a great thing for you to do with any future lab requirements.